Is Mike on? Episode 66. What's wrong with Orny Adams? I'll tell you, I've got a doozy. I've got a real doozy going on for you this week. In fact, 2 weeks. This is my first two-parter. I had the privilege and honor of interviewing right here in Big Yellow former FBI profiler Jim Clemente. Jim, former prosecutor, just story after story after story. I couldn't shut him up. To the point, we're going to have to release 2 episodes. Jim reveals so much, some stuff he would not reveal, stuff that we had discussed prior, because he has to protect his identity. Because as he puts it, I helped put away a lot of bad people. So Jim is fascinating, and you want to hear how Jim got into the FBI. I don't want to give away all the details, but as a teenager, unfortunately, he was molested, and he approached the FBI about wearing a wire and going after his abuser. This led to him being in the FBI. You want to hear him tell the story. He's also a survivor of cancer and a massive heart attack, and he still has a positive outlook on life. Or does he? Maybe he's negative. Maybe he's faking it. Well, you're going to find out in this episode of What's Wrong with Orny Adams as I interrogate Jim Clemente. I break down an FBI former profile. In fact, I lied to Jim, and Jim caught me in a lie. First, before we begin the episode, I want to thank you, the listener. That's what they used to say on PBS. We want to thank you, the listener. I want to thank everybody that's liking, subscribing, sharing all my content, whether it's this podcast, my videos on YouTube. More Than Loud special just hit 1.1 million. I can't believe it. So thank you. And thank you to the people that subscribe to my Patreon who want to get this video when it's fresh. Not a few weeks later when it's on YouTube for everybody. This episode, however, I will be releasing right away just because I feel like it's important. But some extra clips I will put up on Patreon. And also part 2 will be on Patreon way ahead of when you YouTubers can get it. So thank you, everybody. And if you're a fan of my stand-up comedy, and how could you not be? Although in part 2, we do discuss all the Teen Wolf fans that just see me as Coach from Teen Wolf and refuse to migrate over and see me as a stand-up comedian. But for those of you who do appreciate my stand-up comedy, I've got a lot of dates coming up. I'll be in Vegas New Year's Eve. I'll be in Brea, California. The week before, in January, I'm in Chicago. I'm going back to Sarasota, Florida, to McCurdy's. It's all up on ornyadams.com/tour. Also, if you want to correspond with me and discuss this podcast, the email is what'swrong@ornyadams.com. Could that be any easier? The name of the podcast, let's break it down, is What's Wrong with Orny Adams. So the email's what'swrong@ornyadams.com. If you want to find links for the video, for the audio, which is up on, Apple and Spotify, just go to teamwhat'swrong.com. Are you seeing a theme with the naming and all that stuff? Also, breaking news in my career, next week, or this week, I will be joining the cast of Cirque du Soleil in Las Vegas. It's even hard for me to say because I've never done stand-up comedy from a trapeze. But I will be upside down telling jokes. New York casino. Next week, I'm giving it a try. I know I discussed it on this podcast. They wanted me to do a 6-month residency. I thought I would lose my mind. I can't be anywhere for 6 months. Certainly not Vegas. But I'll be there for a week. And also I'll be there New Year's Eve at the Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club. Also, tomorrow, if you're listening to the audio, and maybe the video will be up, I will be, again, on the Adam Carolla podcast. So take a listen to that and watch the video. So now, let's get into this. Episode 66, What's Wrong with Orny Adams? My guest, former FBI profiler Jim Clemente. This is part 1 of 2. So on this episode, we discuss the mind of a serial killer, the mind of sexual abusers. I ask him some questions that I can't even believe I asked him. What's the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath? Do cases, I asked him, and I'm being serious, I'm not being flippant, do cases with murder victims who are more attractive get more attention? Are they solved faster? I believe so. When I watch these murder shows, it seems like most of the victims are attractive. Are average-looking people like me. If I get taken out Is this going to be covered? And I'm asking him seriously. So you want to hear the answer. And Jim gives insight into current events like the Idaho murders, which I offered to help him solve. I believe I have the goods to solve a murder. You don't want to miss this. Part 1. And in part 2, I'll tell you at the end, because I asked him something about Teen Wolf. So enjoy my interview, part 1, with Jim Clemente. Introduce you. My guest today is Jim Clemente, former FBI profiler, former New York State prosecutor, host of Real Crime Profile podcast distributed by Wondery, writer, producer, consultant on Criminal Minds TV show.
I do a few things.
Yeah, and he's a fan of stand-up comedy.
I am.
Specifically mine.
You.
Yes.
Because why? Because you are, what was the word?
I don't know.
Insanely funny.
That's right. So explain how this all happened, how you're here.
So my brother and his wife took me out to the Improv on Melrose, iconic club, right? For comedy for my birthday. Okay. And we sat there through a couple of, okay comedians. Then there was, a really crazy woman from London who I thought was great. Uh-huh. And then this guy gets introduced. And I had never been there before to see one of your shows, but my brother had. And I could see my brother, when I saw you, you were standing by the side of the stage and you wouldn't come up. Yeah. And like the guy up there is like, and you're like, and he introduces you again. And then you come up and you're like looking at papers, you're wandering around, you're mumbling a little bit. Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And my brother just hits me, right? He just hits me. And I know, okay, something's coming. And then you start going off. Right. And it was great. And I notice you have a whole stack of straws right there. Are those straws?
They are. Those are illegal straws, Jim.
I love it.
My act. Yeah.
Yes, I do. So and it was awesome.
I can tell you why I think you love stand-up comedy, and maybe specifically me.
Okay.
Because stand-up comedy is very similar to what you do. Like comics, if it's done right, and I'm not saying I'm doing it right, that's for you guys to judge.
I think you are.
Are behavioral analyst.
You have to read the crowd. You have to play the crowd. Sometimes you have to manipulate the crowd.
Right.
Well, we do that when we're interrogating people.
It's exactly, and I have that in my notes. I said stand-up comedy is like an interrogation. Okay, we need to break you down, which is what I was doing. Mm-hmm. You need to differentiate yourself from the last person that was in the room or the last person that arrested them. You have to earn their trust. You have to make them like you. You have to you have to disarm them, and that's what I was doing that night at the comedy club. There was some energy in that room that I did not like.
Oh, really?
I did not like, and I needed to say that's over. What you just saw is over. Something new's about to happen.
Got it.
And it's similar to, you want to throw them off. You want to take them out of their mindset where they've been.
It worked.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, you got on the stage and I said, this guy, he kind of reminds me of like Christopher Walken meets Jerry Seinfeld. That's basically what I thought.
Yeah.
And what is he going to say and do? And literally, you're flipping around papers, you're looking at things, you're mumbling, and I'm thinking, this guy is literally insane.
Right.
But luckily, it turned into criminally insane. I mean, comically insane.
Yeah.
So that was good.
And that was your tweet. I was with my father at the time, and
really?
This was your second tweet. You tweeted about my special, More Than Loud, which I can't believe just hit 1 million views. And then another 100,000 this week. Right. Nothing. Wow. This never happens to me. I shouldn't announce it. This stuff never happens to me.
Wow.
And I put it up there. I had done the Mark Maron podcast and I put it up there and I thought maybe I'll get 25,000 and I'll be happy with that. And then it just started going. And you go, whoa, what's going on here? And then you start to think maybe this is it. Maybe.
Yeah, it worked. It was great. And, when we started Real Crime Profile, I was working on Criminal Minds and the casting director, Lisa Zambetti, came to me and said, I'd love to ask you so many questions. Like, we should do a podcast. And I said, I was just talking to my friend Bob Ruff about doing a podcast. Right. And I said, we can do it, but I don't want to be the only profiler on it. Let's get Laura Richards because, she's different. She's from the UK. Right. She's a woman. Anyway, we got together. We put it out there. And before you know it, we were just ticking up the number. 975,000. We went to Wondery. They said, come on board. And we went.
Wait a minute. So this is before Wondery. You were getting those numbers.
We got 975,000 in the first 3 months. Yeah, 3.5
with
months.
no promotion or anything, or
no. It's just that we had been doing TV shows about crime, and we're talking about the crime, that was in the news, and
right.
And Bob Ruff came on as our first guest, and he had a lot of fans.
And who was that? I don't know who that is.
He does Truth and Justice podcast. He does like his own investigative series, and he actually gets crowdsourcing to exonerate people that have been wrongfully convicted.
Interesting. There's the Innocence Project. This is different.
But his is he was actually a fire marshal investigator. And he decided, he heard about this case, and he decided to start a podcast, and he got this whole army of people that fight for him and with him. And anyway, so we went to Wondery, and now we're ridiculous, over 75 million.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
This is not to get into the financials, but it must be a windfall for you.
Well, it's a good paying job.
Wow.
It's cool. It's nice.
So you're not running your own podcast out of a Shasta in the back
of your yard. This is so cool. Are you kidding me? This is where you want to be.
You know what I love?
This is iconic.
You know what I love? And before we get into it, I want to ask you, what is it like to be an FBI profiler? But before we officially start the podcast, Jim Clemente is my guest, FBI profiler. And let me tell you something. I lied to you. I lied to you yesterday. And you caught it. You caught it. And I saw it. Yes. Yeah. What's Wrong with Orny Adams, episode 66.
Oh, wow.
Great guest, Jim Clemente, who maybe can teach me how to be a better podcaster. Look at all these notes. I've got 8 pages of notes. I'm so prepared. I've been watching videos of you. I am ready.
Sorry for you.
We're going to talk about the Idaho murders. We're going to talk about every interesting question that I think that people don't ask you. Because I see you, and they're just very dry, a lot of these podcasts and stuff like that. So let's really get into it. You were involved with Whitewater, right?
Yes.
And are you personally responsible for catching the DC snipers?
Myself and my team, yeah.
I was on stage in Baltimore when that was going on.
When the first shootings, the first 6 were right near Baltimore.
I was opening for Jerry Seinfeld at their whatever he would play, the big venue. And I said, Jerry, I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to start running around back in stage on the stage. And I'm going to say, I'm doing this because there's a sniper in town. And Jerry goes, don't do it. I don't think it's going to work. And it destroyed. That's how you do it.
I tell you?
Yeah.
Can I tell just what we're talking about, Jerry?
Yeah.
So in I think it was 1984. Well, New Year's Eve, 1983, going into 1984.
Right.
Jerry was performing at Caroline's in New York, and me and my sister and her roommate, we all got tickets, and we were literally sitting in the front row.
Wow.
And so they closed the venue, right? They closed the doors after he started the show. And he came back down to us for his break.
Gotta hit record this. Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going. Oh, it's recording. Sorry. Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
He came off the stage at his first break, and he said, look, I don't have anybody here, so can I just hang out with you during my breaks? We're like,
you?
Well, yeah. We're like, yeah,
That's
sure.
wild.
So we sat there with Jerry Seinfeld for a half hour every break. He would do 40 minutes, and then he'd break, and then he'd do 40 minutes. And then New Year's happened, and we all hugged, and I think my sister kissed him. I didn't, but it was awesome. It was amazing.
Do you keep in touch with him?
I don't. I mean, I met him one other time, but he's just an iconic, amazing person.
So what's interesting is I never give out my address digitally. I don't digitally transmit it.
Yeah,
in fact,
I kind of figured that when you said, I'll tell you Thursday.
Yeah, I'll tell you Thursday.
Right.
Then
because you were going to make up an address or move
No,
it
I get you into the neighborhood and then I come find you. It's an Easter egg hunt.
Got it.
In fact, I was shocked that you were willing to give me your telephone number over a form of social media. Is that a burner phone?
No, it isn't.
No.
It isn't. But unfortunately, because of what I do now, my professional life and entertainment, it's out there. It's out on IMDb, and people get it. So, and then I get calls all the time from the news agencies, and so my phone is pretty much out there.
Yeah.
But I only have one. I don't really. I know how to vet calls that are coming in.
I bet.
So
I bet that's your profession.
I do have a little bit of a system at home, so it helps me.
Oh, have I been? Did you? What I thought would have been amazing was if I gave you the incorrect address and then you knocked on my.
I kind of looked and I said, Anyway,
do you know? Did you know prior to?
No.
What do you know about me? What have you?
Look,
What?
All I did was watch your videos. I am not working here. This is
No,
fun.
but did you do anything? Research on me at all? Did you?
I talked to your neighbor, actually,
Right.
And, I interview the neighbors around anybody I go
But
to
what
visit.
if we have a mutual friend that's a neighbor of mine,
Yeah.
a TV writer? What if we didn't know somebody in common? Would you have still felt comfortable coming up here?
Yeah, I know how to defend myself.
Right.
I'm
sure.
all right.
I'm sure.
I may or may not be armed.
Yeah, but what if, you don't know, maybe I'm a horrible person. Maybe I am the Idaho murderer. How crazy of a plot twist would that be now on this podcast?
But then I'd have the opportunity to figure that out and then arrest you and be the hero.
Yeah.
So, right now I'm kind of hoping that my appearances on the news will stir somebody up in the public to actually call in the cops. Because the fact is, somebody knows him. Somebody actually lives near him, lives in the same house or apartment building as him, interacts with him every day or every week.
Right.
And they look right past him because they're looking for a monster. Because they see what this guy did and they think monster.
Well, don't say monster.
No,
I saw you on Fox News. You scolded that woman.
Well,
she was shocked. I couldn't. I go, this guy's not nice. I got to be prepared to be attacked.
I was just trying to set the record straight. Hello, when you say monster, everybody's going to be looking away from the guy who did it.
Yeah.
Nobody turns in their neighbor because they think they're a monster unless you're having a dispute about the fence or mowing the grass or something. Then you might do it. But if this person who lives next to you is like a regular human being,
right,
but inside his brain, he's killing people and he finally acts on it, you're never going to know it.
Here's the thing. This is where I agree with you that he knew the victims.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with you. He's probably still in the community and trying to blend in.
Yeah, unless he booked out because of the school break or some emergency. 11,000 people left a couple days later because of the school break.
But I don't think he's making what would be perceived as irrational movement right now. He's not in Mexico.
Oh, if he was, then he would stand out. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
So there would be either a justification for him leaving temporarily, his grandmother's sick in Texas, something like that, right? Or he's in town and he's trying to fit in. Although he may have been late for work the next day, he may have called in sick, he may have avoided his friends, he may be wearing gloves in the house because he's covering up a couple of cuts on his hands from stabbing wounds, all that kind of stuff. He got rid of whatever clothing he was wearing because it got blood all over it.
And by the way, I thought for a moment today I solved the crime. And I was going to announce it right here on What's Wrong with Orny Adams. But I, after reading 2 articles, determined this was a murder-suicide.
Really?
Until the 3rd article revealed they still haven't found the murder weapon. So hard to kill yourself and dispose of the weapon. Unless accomplice comes in, one of the roommates, the 6th. Tomorrow they're going to announce there's a 7th roommate.
Okay. Or I'll tell you one case where you had a situation like that, where the guy committed suicide, tied a string to the trigger guard of the gun, sat on the edge of a river, had a gallon milk jug with just a little bit of water in it, closed up, tossed that in the water, pulled the trigger, the gun falls out of his hand, and he intended it to just float away down the Mississippi River, but it got snagged up on a little tree branch.
What was he trying to do? Was he trying to frame somebody?
No. Well, he was trying to make it look like he was killed rather than...
Was he trying to fool God so he gets to heaven? What? That's the most elaborate... If you're that clever, you could be more successful in life. If you can try and stage...
Think insurance policy, okay?
Okay.
It doesn't cover suicide,
okay.
All right? By the way, what is that green stuff over there?
You know what it is. It's my magic potion. You can test it. There's no drugs.
No.
It's legal.
I'm not saying it's drugged. I always notice that you keep like a half a glass of it.
Yeah,
It's never a full glass. You never drink the whole thing.
Because I'll lose my energy. I'll lose my focus. I need like the sugar.
Okay.
But here's the real question.
What's the real question?
Here's the real question involving the Idaho murder, which involved 4 people, right?
Well, 5 people, 4 that were murdered and 1 that killed them.
You think like such an FBI.
I'm sorry.
profile. No, it's actually 22 people if you include the family. No, it's 38 if you have law enforcement. No, it's
Well, the
14,000.
entire nation and the world right now, because it's about 7.5 billion people.
It seems like Fox News is covering this a lot more than MSNBC and CNN. When I'm up on a plane, I'm profiling people. I walk up and down the aisle and I look at who's watching which network. So right there, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I go on any networks.
Yeah.
I don't limit myself to CNN or Fox or anything in between. I feel like I want to, especially in a case like this, it's unsolved. I want to try to get the information out to as many people as possible. And you can't do that by being on one network.
Right. I have a serious question. It's going to sound flippant, but if you're good looking, is there a better chance your murder will be solved?
Wow. I don't think so. I mean, because you got a lot of ugly serial killers out there.
No. I'm saying the victim. If you're
Okay,
let me rephrase the question.
Rephrase
If
that.
if you're a victim of being murdered and you're good looking, is there a higher chance your crime will be solved?
I'll tell you what. There's a higher chance that there's going to be a media circus.
Right.
There's a higher chance that it's going to stay in the news for a longer time. But if you're a really sophisticated killer, that may never be solved. So, for example,
Well, if the Idaho victims if they were ugly, we wouldn't be out of the news already, right?
I don't think so. I think the fact that they're young, the fact that they're beautiful people helps, but the fact that they're just students and it's just before the holidays and it's a major tragedy.
When you worked at the FBI and like, hey Jim, we have a murder for you here, and then you look at the picture of this guy's ugly. I'm not solving it. Give this to Jones. Hey Jones, we got an ugly guy.
Here's the new guy.
Yeah,
let him do it.
You get the ugly cases.
No, we didn't do that. In the FBI, we don't do that. The media seems to do that. I mean, you get John Benet Ramsey, right? You get
Madeline
McCann.
Yeah.
What's her name? Jesus, I can't remember right now.
Who? What? Tell me.
Brian Laundrie's fiance.
Oh, I think I've seen you talking about her.
I can't believe I can't remember.
No, well, I got it right here. Jodi Arias.
Oh, Jodi Arias. No, but I'm talking about recently.
The
guy who
campers
drove back to Florida in her van.
Yeah, the kids that want to live in vans. Yeah.
Those cases are, they're top of the news. But we've been working with the missing and murdered Indigenous
it's a
people
real problem.
task force. There's over 770 cases that are unsolved.
Right.
And many of them are from the same damn neighborhood where Gabby Petito was killed.
Really?
And yet none,
Where
not
is
a
this?
single one of them in Montana.
Huh.
Not a single one of them has been on the news.
Huh.
Not once. So what we're doing, we actually started a documentary series where we're highlighting some of these cases so we can kind of get them back in the news and get law enforcement more involved in resolving them.
This interests me a lot. In fact, I'll talk to you about it off because I was involved with something that is.
If you're going to confess,
it's close
can we
to a
do it
confession.
at close to the end of the hour? Just so, because, otherwise we'll never get this done. It'll never be on the air and it'll be a total waste of my time other than arresting
I'm
you.
going to tell you something.
Okay.
I would never confess.
Okay.
In fact, if you came in right now with your little FBI buddies, your little crew, and you said we want to talk, I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't even ask you why you want to talk to me. I would go for a lawyer immediately.
Yeah, but what if I met you out at a bar? There's no way you would have known that I was an FBI agent. We'd be sitting there drinking, and I could get you talking. And if I knew that you were a serial killer, for example, I might let a few things drop about, I'd like to take that one out,
Jim, I have committed a few crimes in my life. And let me tell you something.
You just admitted something.
Yeah,
here,
you don't
by the
brag
way.
about. Yeah, but you don't know what the crime could be.
Oh.
You know.
How do you know I don't know?
Yeah.
You think I don't know?
Here's the big mistake people make:
What's the
bragging.
big-
You don't brag. I don't need
Exactly.
credit. I don't need any credit.
Well, because you don't have that particular personality problem. Like, let's say somebody. Let's pull a random name. Donald. Okay, let's say somebody named Donald, who every single time he gets on TV has to talk about how good everybody says he's doing, how wonderful everything that's happening around is because of him, the things he's doing, how successful. What does that tell you about his personality?
That he's a narcissist.
Well, but he also has a very, very small, imperfect self-image. He needs adulation. If he didn't, the most confident people are the quietest people about themselves. The most confident people are the people who do, not say.
Right.
And this is something I had to school my nephew about, because he was like, I don't know, I'm having trouble, dating. How come I can't? And I said, tell me how you've done it in the past. And everything is about bragging to women about himself. And I said, try this.
Wish you'd given me this speech 20 years ago. I mean, I'm a little bummed. I'm a little closer to Donald than to what the ideal,
it's, I think, maybe
Say it.
it's part of your act. I think maybe you kind of have this thing. And, everybody should. Look, when I get on stage, I have a persona, and for me, what I do, and tell me if you experience the same thing, is I feed off the energy in the crowd.
Of course.
Right? So, like, we're bundles of energy, right? There's electrons firing. There's electrical charges going through our bodies.
Yeah.
Well, when we focus on somebody, we're sending that out to them.
Right.
And when a whole crowd of people together, can you imagine being in Wembley, 120,000 people all looking at you and cheering you and all that? That energy. I don't even know what's about to come out of my mouth. Sometimes what I say, I'm like, that was pretty fucking funny.
What do you on stage for? What do you?
Well, I mainly train law enforcement, but I've done 400 or 500 presentations, from 20-minute keynotes to 8-hour days.
Right.
And if you're training people for 8 hours, you can't just be boring, or they'll never call you back. But if you're funny, if you're self-deprecating, if you're funny, if you throw in things from pop culture and things like that, people stay interested. So I use Seinfeld a lot in my interrogation and deception speeches, right? Because George, I mean, he was the king of deception, right? And so was Jerry, for example. And when George wanted to go out with Marissa Tomei, and he's sitting on a park bench. Well, first he has to get Elaine to cover with him with his girlfriend, and so Elaine is amazing. She made that show, right? I think she turned that show around. She was like the key character for me.
Okay.
But anyway, he's sitting on the bench with Marissa Tomei, and she says, "I can't believe somebody like you, so bald and so funny." And he says, "Well, Marissa, I'm sort of engaged." Well, he says, "Well, give him some time. Marissa, I'm sort of." He's equivocating. He's not trying to sell, right? He's not even confident about what he's saying. And these things that he's saying, they indicate that what's happening is a lie, right? That he's...
But how do you know he didn't forget his lines? And he's stalling by saying sort of.
But it's so good. But because I have a whole list of things that indicate
I saw
veracity and a whole list of things that indicate...
I saw you break down, I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
There is no sexual relationship with that woman.
That woman.
With that woman.
Dehumanizing that. Here's the real...
She got pissed. That's why she came in.
What do you...
Monica got pissed when he said that woman. What, Matt? That woman?
Yeah.
I was just sucking your dick a couple days ago.
And I have a dress.
Yes.
I have a dress that I saved. Yeah, saved the DNA evidence.
More than just DNA.
Yes. Yeah. One of my early jokes was I would say, why don't we call it what it is? It's not like no guy's ever called his cum DNA evidence. No guy's ever said I'm DNAing. And that was that joke got me a deal with Warner Brothers Television. Did you come in today with any motive or game plan, or did you just come in to have a conversation?
To talk to you?
Yeah.
I came to meet you. I really was blown away by you on stage. First of all, the two things that I'll say that I thought were amazing about your comedy is, one, you planted Easter eggs, and then at the end they paid off, which I love, because it tells me you know that people in the audience can think. It's not just about slapstick or being just crude, which some of the people that preceded you were just being crude. And it's just like, that doesn't take intelligence. So I love that. And the other thing I loved is that you talk about everything, everyday life, and you make it funny as shit.
Because, okay, and this brings us back to why you and I relate. Because I saw an interview, and I think you were talking about Guantanamo Bay. In fact, my father has a question, before I get into this, about that exactly. This is a question from my father. My father asks, what works better than torture to get a valid, truthful, sorry, let me get this clean from my dad. What works better than torture to get valid, truthful information from a terrorist? Rapport intervention.
Yeah. Rapport. One word. Rapport.
Right.
Rapport building. Showing people that have every reason to hate you. And believe me, I've sat across from serial killers, right? And gotten them to confess. Terrorists are no different. They're human beings. But they've been trained to hate us. Why? Because they're taught all the horrible things that happen to them and their people.
And then we play into it.
Right, by hurting them more.
Right.
I mean, how is that helping? No, all you're doing is reinforcing their negative stereotypes of you.
But shouldn't we not give a shit what somebody who's blown up buildings and killed Americans, what they think of Americans?
But you're not going to get accurate and reliable information
if we pull out their fingernails one at a time.
They're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. They're not going to tell you the truth.
Well, how do you know when you build rapport because they're telling you the truth? How can you ever trust?
You get them to work with us. You get them to work with us. We did that. We turned guys who were hardened terrorists into helping us. They became our people.
Am I arrogant to think that I would be good at this?
At interrogating?
Yeah.
No, you're smart. First of all, you already said, you know how to build rapport. Number one gift of good interrogators is building rapport. You have to take somebody who's at the worst moment of their life and get them to trust you, get them to share with you the thing that's going to hurt them the most.
You know,
it's difficult.
The reason I started this podcast, What's Wrong with Orny Adams?
What is wrong with Orny?
Yeah, there's a lot wrong, and a lot of it's what's wrong with the world. It's got a duality.
You reflect.
Yeah. People my entire life have opened up to me, perfect strangers, and told I know secrets.
It's your eyes.
I know secrets. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so. You have you don't have very hidden eyes.
I can't hide. We're going to talk about that. We have so much to talk about. I have information that could put people in jail. I have information that would certainly end marriages. I could get people fired. They open up to me more times. I've heard this phrase, if people knew this, I would be killed. And I don't know what it is. I suspect it's because when I start a conversation, I don't get into, I ramble. I don't, I'm all over the place. I'm just sort of, but I never judge. Like, even if you're a serial killer, there's humanity in there somewhere.
I always say that. That's how you find a path to building rapport. You look for humanity. So when I went to Guantanamo, first of all, I lost a lot of friends and colleagues on that day. My father's office had been on the 93rd floor, but he had retired already. I lived across the street from the World Trade Center. I mean,
you got cancer because
I got cancer from it. Yes, but so I had a lot of negative emotions related to what happened on 9/11. So if anybody hated these guys who did this, I did. But I also knew that what we wanted was to stop this from happening ever again. Get the people who did it and stop it from ever happening again. The only way to do that is to get people on the inner circle to be on our side. They're never going to be on our side if you're pulling out their fingernails or waterboarding them, trying to make them think they're going to die. That doesn't help. And all it ended up doing, and the cases that actually, where the CIA said, oh, yeah, it did work with this guy or that guy, the guy was counting on his fingers because he knew they were going to do it for 10 seconds, and then they'd stop. So he was playing them. They did it 80-something times. And a lot of times he gave them bullshit that they could never confirm because it was fake. It was
But-
bullshit.
Okay, so once you go down there, you lose your friends and colleagues because you're willing to play this different angle. Once you got the information, did you win them back? Did they respect you after that?
I got people to cooperate with us. Yes, totally.
And once they cooperated, after that, did you beat the shit out of them? Did you
No.
waterboard them?
I did not.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah.
I was being, I was doing a little bit of this with the Marines there. They were all gung ho. They were being told and ordered to be gung ho, to take it to the extreme.
Right.
And I told them that's not the way it's going to work.
Yeah.
And I taught them how to do it properly. It took a while, but they changed the interrogation manual as a result of it.
It's pretty amazing. I'd like to talk to one of these people because I really do think, and that's what I do with my comedy. So when you say I'm talking about pillowcase covers, I'm talking about inane straws, whatever it is, and what happens is if you go to see one of my shows, which you have, and if you haven't, I invite everybody.
Oh, you should.
My tour schedule's up.
Wherever you are, do it. Do it.
That's your camera right there.
Let me tell you. No, there were 6 comedians that night, and literally nobody could hold a candle to you. Nobody. And not only there were a couple that were funny, but I didn't walk out of there saying, I need to meet this person. I need to see more of this stuff. I have been watching you on YouTube, and I've seen a couple of specials. I learned about the Third Amendment. There's a lot of stuff I've been educated now.
As an FBI analyst, you should know the Third Amendment.
Yeah, I never arrested anybody for violating the Third Amendment. I'm sorry, but anyway, the point is, I learned a lot, but I also literally laughed out loud. I mean, it takes a lot for me to do. I've been through a lot, and I've seen a lot of the really worst things that humans do to one another. So laughter's what got me through a bone marrow transplant. I watched Pink Panther movies and what's the one? The Monty Pythons.
How did 9/11 lead to your cancer? What was it?
I was digging on the pile for 5 days, and we're breathing in. After about 2 hours, our filters got all clogged up, our air filters. We had to take them off. We couldn't breathe through it.
What were you digging for? Is this as
Bodies?
FBI? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
As part of the FBI, or were you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we were collecting evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, we had we were collecting evidence and bodies, but I'm telling you, nothing we found was bigger than this.
Do you know what I thought they should have turned 9/11, that site, into, instead of building more? Where I thought, to counter the horrible deaths that happen on that site, turn it into a birthing hospital.
Wow, that's a good idea. That'll counteract it. I think part of it is, I mean, they obviously left the 2 actual building sites empty. Those are the pits. Now, I have not been there to see it. I just haven't been able to go back there for that. But I think, the fact is that,
I mean, you get cancer, you don't want to go back. I get it.
No, it wasn't that. I mean, it was just the smells and the sights and sounds. It was unbelievable. It was literally like you're on another planet. And I spent 5 days at the World Trade Center, Ground Zero, and then 3 weeks at the Pentagon, because my unit ended up doing all the evidence collection there. And at the Pentagon, everybody was like, "Oh my God, this is just a tremendous amount of destruction." And I said, "It's 1,000 times worse in New York." They couldn't fathom that. And I said, 1,000 times worse. It turns out there was 1 million tons of debris in the Pentagon. 1.2 billion tons.
Say that number again. The first number, 1 million?
1 million tons of debris at the Pentagon. 1.2 billion tons.
Wow. Well, wait, who's weighing it?
Well, they had to transport all of it.
Oh, wow.
They sifted through everything. They collected DNA off of everything. In fact,
where's that now?
It was in a landfill in Staten Island.
Oh.
But
why does all the shit end up in Staten Island?
Well, it was a place. I don't know. But a number of the FBI agents who got cancer from it got cancer from sifting through the evidence there. And I was one of the lucky ones. I mean, I'm alive, and we've lost. I mean, last year alone, We lost 3 agents to cancer from
sorry.
9/11. But anyway, there was so much. It was like New York, the World Trade Center site was like an entire city in ruins. Anywhere else in the country would have been a whole city. There was 150,000 people who worked there every day. And probably 1 million people who went through there every day. And it's 9 square blocks of complete and utter destruction, and then a whole bunch of destruction in the periphery. It's just massive. You can't imagine the scale of it. And I walked around on the last day I was there. I walked around to the north side, and I turned around, and there was a big globe, kind of a modern kind of globe in the middle of the plaza. That was like 3 stories down, and I could see straight through to my apartment building, Gateway Plaza in Battery Park City. Like, that was like Mount McKinley moving, going away.
Right.
I could see right through where the Trade Center was. And in fact, when I was watching, I was actually teaching a class at the FBI Academy when the planes hit and the towers fell. I had it up on the big screen, and when the first tower fell, my knees gave out. I literally fell on the ground. Were
you at home?
No, I was teaching.
Okay. I'm sorry.
At the FBI Academy.
Where's that?
In Quantico, Virginia.
Okay.
And I got back in my car. I immediately got back in my car and drove up there. I didn't get there till like 5:30 in the morning because of all the traffic and all that, and it was difficult to get through.
Yeah, how do you get into the
going
city?
The other way.
Yeah.
But I badged my way through, I just could not believe the scale of it, just the mountain of debris. And then also there were chunks where the plaza had collapsed, and you could see like 18 floors of the World Trade Center all pancaked. They were like, less than a foot each, like a layer cake.
And you just know there's people in there, and it's
everything.
Just,
Everything.
Wow.
It's just,
Well, I mean,
anyway, let's talk about something more. I didn't mean to get dark.
I tried to make it light. I tried to add a little levity in there at times. I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to ask him now, how close can he get to the World Trade Center? Can he go to 18th Street? Can he go to? But I won't.
No.
Here, let's get back to the Idaho murders, because this is what's intriguing to me.
Talk about lighthearted.
Yeah, I'll make it light. This is when I watch you, and I've watched now 2 clips of you on different broadcasts talking about it, and I'm thinking, what information do you have that I don't have to make these assessments? Have you talked to local law enforcement? Or are you just reading?
No, it's just based on the behavior that law enforcement has spoken about publicly. And I also kind of sift through some of the news because, people give interpretations almost like telephone, the old game of telephone. I try not to listen to all that, but we look at what actually happened. So profiling is actually, you don't even have to ask me, I just told you. Profiling is reverse engineering a crime. So you look at the crime scene, and you see what kind of person committed those kinds of acts. What would it take to do this? So we look at victimology. We start with the victims, right? Because an offender picks a particular victim at a particular time, particular place, in a particular manner, for a particular purpose. All those choices reflect back on them. So why did he pick students?
Right.
Why did he pick late at night? Why did he pick right before the holidays, that they were all out drinking that night? Why? Because he had to make it easier for them to get in there. How did he know that they were in that condition? He must have been watching them.
I think this is somebody that was high on drugs. I feel like it's somebody, and I don't know why, I know nothing, that would never have committed these. I think it's a crime of passion, probably against one of these women, and then all of a sudden there's, more fighting to be done.
Drugs and alcohol do lower inhibitions. There's no question about it. So you'll act to, more extremely, and stress increases the chance that you'll act to your extreme. So I think you had stressors in his life, drugs or alcohol, that lowered his inhibitions, and he acted finally. But I think this built up over time. Now, it may just be hours, but it may be weeks, months, or years. It could be this person was focused on one or more of the people in that house for some time. But I do absolutely believe there was pre-attack surveillance, and he waited.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
He waited, because how could you enter a home with 6 adults.
Because you're high on drugs, you're furious,
Right, but
you're
then
angry
why
at this
didn't
girl.
he set off all the alarms? Why didn't the dog start barking and everything went crazy?
Don't they leave the back door open and it's a party house?
It is kind of a party house, but the back door, which one? On the very first floor or on the second floor? Which one are you saying? Because I think he came in on the second floor.
Will this person kill again?
I think if he's cornered.
I mean, don't you think...
There's no indication yet of anything that I know that this is a serial offender. He didn't kill all the people in the house. He didn't, as far as we know, didn't take anything, souvenirs, trophies, whatever. He didn't, if he was just a drug addict who just killed like because he was in a drug crazed state,
right,
he would have taken the computers, the money, whatever. There would be more indications of other motives. The lack of those motives tell us the motive was probably cerebral. He was probably getting revenge, trying to maintain his manhood, something like that.
Have you ever asked a murderer? I hear my phone. Have you ever asked a serial killer once, or even somebody who's killed just 2 people? Is it easier once you've killed 1 person? Is the second kill easier?
All right. So serial killing, we look at more as a qualitative rather than just a quantitative analysis. So the fact that you killed 2 or more makes you a serial killer, right? But you could have somebody who kills his first kill, who makes his first kill,
right,
who intends to kill as many times as he wants. He's still a serial killer, but he gets caught early,
really?
Right? Oh yeah, absolutely. He still has the same mindset. So this is something that some people, especially, let's say, sexual sadists, psychopaths, they don't have human empathy. They literally look at other people as if they are this table or this chair.
I want to talk to you about that because I feel like part of the problem that you have is if you were interrogating
This is my
me.
problem?
Yeah, you got a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about your
No,
problems,
no.
but that's okay.
No, this is what's wrong with Jim Clemente. And let me be honest with you.
There's a lot
yeah, there's
wrong with Jim Clemente.
Oh, believe me, I've got pages. I've done more background. I know people in the bureau. What's it called? Bureau. In my bureau upstairs. Yeah, I know people. I know.
Okay, so what's wrong with Jim Clemente? What are you saying? What's my problem?
Okay, if you were to interrogate me, be pretty easy. Okay.
Oh.
First of all, I think I'm incapable of murder. I don't think I could kill somebody unless it was in self-defense, or maybe if they murdered a loved one or something like that. I'm just not capable of it isn't me. But people that can do this and multiple times are sociopathic.
That's a diagnostic term, though.
I took a psychology class in college.
Okay, good. But you have to actually, to get there, you have to actually clinically diagnose somebody. We don't get that in the profiling unit.
Really?
We have to do indirect personality assessment.
There's not psychologists?
No, we learn. Oh yeah, there's some psychologists. Some of the profilers are psychologists, but we don't have the benefit of doing psychoanalysis on somebody.
Okay.
What we do is look at their behavior, and we indirectly assess their personality from that. So it's slightly different. But we also don't rely on self-reporting, because self-reporting can be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, people lie about what they're doing, what they're thinking, right? They hide shit.
Okay, but of course, this is what I want to get into. In the one interview about Jodi Arias, you said she's a sociopath, could be a psychopath. What's the difference?
Okay, so, all right, sociopath is a clinical diagnosis in psychology. Psychopathy, Dr. Robert Hare came up with the psychopathy checklist. It's 20 points, basically 20 behavioral points,
Okay.
Grandiose, narcissistic, criminal versatility, pathological lying, all those things.
Okay.
If you don't have it at all, you get a 0. If you have a little bit, you get a 1. If you have it a lot, you get a 2.
Right.
And if you add up to more than 30, you're a psychopath, all right? So it's used in criminal law. Also, there are plenty of sociopaths who are not criminals, all right? They're just antisocial. They can go off in a cabin like, Ted Kaczynski, and if he never started bombing people,
The Unabomber.
yes, he would have just been a sociopath in the woods. And,
Right.
He killed animals to live, and he, did his own thing.
Okay.
But psychopaths, there are 2 types. One is the typical one that you think about, who becomes a serial killer, and then there's the CEO psychopath, who kills other people's careers
Right.
to get above. You look at some of the some of the presidents, some of the big CEOs, they've crushed other companies and people because they don't give a damn about anybody
They don't
else.
care about people.
That's how they rose above.
Yeah. Did you read the book, The Sociopath Next Door?
I did not.
Okay, it's an amazing book. In fact, I did an entire podcast
about
episode.
you?
No, it isn't.
Oh, okay.
No, but 4% of the population is sociopathic, and they're amongst us. They could be in the trailer right now. They because they're very good at hiding it. They're very good at hiding it, and they may not have the reflexes, or if you were interrogating, may not sweat, may not because I saw you in talking in a bunch of podcasts about how you read a person's body language. Do they tighten up? Do they take a sip? Do they
change?
Do they change?
Right.
And a sociopath probably just sits there and just feels nothing. They feel no remorse.
But what the smart ones do, they look and they see it in others. They see emotion in others and they mimic it. And they're very successful at it. Plus, they're always looking for excitement, right? So they're fun to be around. They usually have a cadre of people around. They have jet skis. They jump out of airplanes.
Say it, they're producers. They're TV and film producers. They fool you every time.
I always thought they were comedians.
They make you
what do I know? Everybody's a comedian.
Do you have a diagnosis of me based on my act?
It's not a diagnosis.
Because you called me insanely funny.
I did.
And in the tweet, and I just said, I'm thankful that the word funny proceeds. Yeah. But, I mean, I'm curious what you're reading into. Like I said, I lied to you where I lived, and I was curious if you were going to pick up on it because it's close enough that you may not have been able to tell what door you were going into, but I saw it. The minute you walked in my door and you saw the address on the outside, your eyes lit up. I go, shit, he got me already. Caught me in my first lie.
Okay, either we're breaking into his neighbor's house or...
Yeah.
I mean, it's a... Look, profiling, the actual science is actually an art science, right? Mm-hmm. It's part art, part science. And what it is educating your gut, because your gut is nothing more than your subconscious speaking to you, right? Subconscious works up to 200 million times faster than your conscious mind. 200 million times. Because we think in thousandths of a second. That's pretty fast, but it's not faster than your subconscious. That's sending all the electrons and all the stuff going on in all of your glands and all your brain function. All that's going by your subconscious. You're not conscious of it.
But how do you know that? How do we know there's 200 thoughts? Or
I'm just basing it on neuroscience, and I've talked to
sociopath did that test. And is lying to us.
Actually, a psychopath did. Dr. James Fallon. He's at the University, California at Irvine. He was doing studies on psychopathy.
Okay.
And then he did it, he got all these controls from all his family so he could see what normal people were like versus these psychopaths that are in prison, right? Mm-hmm. And then as he did the control group, he found out that one of them was actually a psychopath, and it was him.
Oh.
And then his mother told him, well, your great aunt was Lizzie Borden.
That's the one who killed everybody with an axe. Yeah.
Yeah, fun person to be around.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, I can't study everything. I'm not that, smart, but I have to rely on other people. But what I've learned about the mind is that if you can rely on your subconscious to take in details. Look, I sat there in a room and listened to you do crazy things and put on your act, and I saw when you couldn't help smiling yourself, and I saw when you got a little embarrassed, or when you sat down and said, Jesus, her laugh was funny, but when you're this close, it's pretty fucking annoying.
Yeah. You were there that night. I remember that night. Yeah.
You were so quick. You were so quick with responding to stimuli there, and I knew you were on fire, and I could relate because. Yeah, I've been there, right? Where I say, I can't even fucking believe I said that. Or how did I catch that? How did I put those two things together? And so I saw those things about you, which intrigues me because you have a level of intelligence that most of the people in that room that night didn't, right? I mean, not most of the people in the room, but most of the people that got up on the stage.
No, most of the people in that room,
I know.
for sure.
I didn't want to insult everybody. But
last night I was on stage and go, what a bunch of average And,
I know.
no, I called them average, like, intelligence
I
the other
know, I
night.
saw
Like,
that.
now I'm not only calling them average looking, but average intelligence.
Right, but the night I was there was a guy from Maine, and it fit perfectly with your
That was
your
bizarre.
bit. It was so great.
Yeah,
and
it was
then
so great.
the person next to him was the girl with the crazy laughter.
Crazy
so
laugh.
it was so cool. Anyway, that worked out well. But I love how you're able to do that and making it real and relatable and going back to when I was a kid, you know. I mean, I'm older than you, but you still reminded me of all the things that happened when I was a kid, which is great. And I love the fact that you talk about your father and to your father. You know, I just lost my father a couple of years ago. He was living with me. Great guy. I mean, he got funnier and funnier and funnier as he got older. Like, it was great. And
Family's everything.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
And actually, that's the theme of the pilot I'm writing, actually, right
Well,
now.
I hope there's a part in there for me.
The crazy, insane guy. Come on. Yes, why
I'll
not?
take it. Work's work.
Work is work.
Work is work. And I'm gonna, you know what? Let me ask you a question
Tell me
right now
more.
because this is about work. But do you agree with this statement from the book, The Sociopath Next Door? She claims, the author. I love this book. The only problem is, once I finished reading it, I was just walking around accusing people in my brain of being I went, that's a sociopath. You're a sociopath.
Well, one of the things they warned us when we went through profiling training was, look, you're going to see little indications of all these things in other people. Don't make the mistake of diagnosing them in your brain, because you have to do a full clinical evaluation. There's going to be people that indicate it.
That's another question I have for you. Before I get to that question, then the other question, starting to feel like my act. I'm way behind.
You are.
Yeah.
I mean, we only have another 4 hours.
I have a million questions. Are you capable of having personal relationships? Because you have such a high bullshit meter that I suspect you see
I call
through
people out. I mean,
I
I'm
do
very
too.
direct. I would rather deal directly with an issue than put it off and let it blow up. That's how I
People
am.
can't deal with it. They'd
Some
rather
people
be
cannot do
lied
that.
to.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's tough. And I bumped into that in my life. There's no question about it. And also, you know, there's been a time or two where somebody, you know, at a party, at an event, you know, at a screening, somebody says, oh, profile me. And they always do.
Really? That's bizarre.
No, they think it's cool. It's a
Yeah.
party trick,
Yeah.
right? Well, one time I finally said, okay, I'll do it. And it was a guy. And he ran this, you know, film festival,
Okay.
all right, in a small town. And I had been there for a day or two. And I said to him, look, I think when you were young, you lost somebody who was very close to you. It was very tragic. And he is already going like this. And he looks around the room at the other guys there.
Yeah.
And I said, and this really affected you. And it kind of froze you in time there. And because of that, you kind of hang out with sort of inappropriately young people.
Whoa. Do we find a pedophile?
Yes, we did.
No.
Well, yes.
Come on. What kind of pedophile says profile
Because
me?
He's
arrogant.
smarter than me.
Arrogant.
All
They're
right,
all
so-
arrogant.
So I said to him,
That's why I know I'm not a serial killer. I'm
There you
not.
go.
I'm not
You're not-
smart enough or arrogant enough.
So I said to him, look, a bad person in your position would take advantage of those young people around him. But I know you're not doing that,
Oh.
because the young people were all around him right
Wow.
then and there.
How
So
old's
I
this
put
guy?
them on. He was late 30s, early 40s.
Uh huh.
And so I said to, you know, the guy that I was at the film festival with, the next day, he said, you know, what'd you do? And I said, oh, I went to this party and I read this guy and I think he's a pedophile. And I can guarantee you, I'm going to ask him one question. And if he changes the subject, you're going to know it's true.
Oh, well, this is
So
good.
I'm hanging out with Jamie and we're talking and the guy shows up. And I said, what did you think about me profiling you last night? And he goes, what happens in the Hilton stays in the Hilton. And he changed the subject. And Jamie looks at me.
What were the tells?
That it's just the interactions and the sort of, like, there was a lot of unsaid things happening.
Like what?
Well, I mean,
Because I've never met a stranger and thought that's a pedophile.
well,
I do meet
have.
people on the plane that spend too much time talking to the flight attendants, the hot female flight attendants. Those
Yeah,
guys
that's
drive
a
me
little
nuts
different. Okay.
too.
Yeah,
But what was there any
I mean-
like what stands out in a
look,
pedophile
when
personality?
you're in your 40s, teenagers are kind of boring. You
Yeah.
know, they literally have they're
annoying.
playing video games. They're annoying. They have stupid things that they want
Yes.
to talk about.
I hate kids.
If you eat that up, if you spend more time with them than age appropriate adults, That's
But
a red
how did
flag.
you know that just from talking
I'm
to him at a
just telling
party?
you, I let my gut, I let my subconscious take in
But
all the
what
data.
did you ask him? What one specific question led to that? Are you
didn't
into
have-
gaming, or it was just
No.
a sense?
No, I just watched him and I saw the behavior. And
Oh, at the party, watching him interact.
at the film festival, I mean, because this was like 2 days into it.
Yeah.
I see him at the film festival. I see who he I see who he brightens up around. I see, all this stuff. I'm seeing that all of the volunteers are all males in their late teens.
Got it.
What's going on here? All right, fine. And then, it kind of stacks up.
Yeah. I get. You know what I tell all my female friends? Have a guy. If you want to date a guy, have one of your guy friends.
Come and check them out.
Yeah, because we can see
We
through
know.
it.
We
We know
the
who's
bullshit
who's the
is.
player, who's a pervert.
Mhm.
We can tell right away. Right away.
Because, either you are that kind of person or you're not, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not, that pisses you off.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
It's annoying. Why are humans so bad at lying?
Not all of them. I mean, psychopaths are not bad at lying.
But a lot of us
But,
are
yes.
biologically, I joked earlier about how I've committed some crimes. I'm probably incapable because I'm a rules player.
It's
I-
pathways in your brain.
yeah,
That's it.
and I
Pathways-
can't. I would live with guilt.
So this is the cool thing about your brain. It's actually organic, right? It actually grows, and it develops neural pathways, right? From, for example, that glass over there, right? It's got a color, right? It's green. The stuff in it is green.
Drives you
So,
nuts.
all right, but it's green. That's a color, right? It has a shape. All right, that's physical. It has a heft to it. That's a weight. It smells a certain way. It tastes a certain way. All those aspects are stored in different parts of your brain. The way that you remember it, you have to pull together all those different pieces from the different puzzle pieces in your brain, or chain links in your brain. And that's how you pull out a memory, right?
I haven't heard a word of what you said since you said half.
Okay.
I've been stuck on the word half. I'm like, you should have said ounces.
No.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But what I'm saying is that your brain works in a way that you have developed in your life certain neural pathways, all right? And it connects certain things. Some people have a super highway that connects them all together. Some people, it's zigzag, ricochet, rabbit stuff. And so it takes them a long time to pull out memories or think of things. And so you have a very quick brain. I could see you on stage. Like I said, your brain was on fire. You were picking up things. You were relating them. You were able to read the room, play the room, and be funny all at the same time. That tells you something about your pathways in your brain. And so when you're developing, there's parts of your brain, maybe you hit a kitten when you were young, or pushed your little sister down and fell and got hurt. Now, your reaction to it, like, oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That developed a pathway in your brain. That started a pathway. And you either reinforce that helpful pathway or say, that was kind of funny. Let me do it again when my mother isn't around. Let me see what can happen. And you reinforce those negative things. That's the difference between somebody who can kill, who can't kill. You go out hunting, you gut the deer right there, you pull all the guts out. Doesn't bother you then when you go into a house and kill 4 people, because you've been doing this since you were 8, right? So that's why I said the guy uses a knife. He probably brags about his knife. He's shown people.
Talking Idaho again.
Yes, Idaho. And he didn't blanch when he killed the first one or the second one or the third one. He kept going.
But is it possible he killed one and then all of a sudden another one becomes a witness and got to kill that one?
Well, it's apparent. It's apparent that he killed 2 sets of people, right? So there was 2 people in the same bedroom down on the second floor, and there's 2 people in the same bedroom on the third floor. So it's possible that one person was a target, but they weren't the people on the second floor, and he didn't know it. And so he killed those people because he walked into the room. Maybe they looked in the dark like the person he wanted. And then he went upstairs to kill the target, and he didn't kill the people down all the way downstairs because he had already killed this target.
Are you itching to go? Would you love to go up
Oh,
there?
that's the worst thing about being retired.
I knew it.
It's just that you have to sit on you have to get used to it. It takes a while.
Let's unretire you for this case.
Sure.
Let's solve it. You and I.
All right.
I think. No, really, because I'll bring such fresh outsider.
This would be a show.
This is a great show. You and I solving cases.
Crimes, yes.
Because I'm such an outsider that I'll see things that you're blocked to.
Right. You will.
You got a studio. Let's put it together. Get your brother on the phone.
Okay.
Let's do.
Well, when we're looking for new profilers, we don't say we want everybody who fits this mold. We want as diverse a group as possible. The very first case that I profiled was this case where the victim was if I don't have time, tell me if you're.
No, I'm looking at your level. I'm making sure our levels are.
Am I too
No, you're great.
No, anyway, the whole.
Look, don't take it so personally because for 1 second I looked away. You narcissist. Maybe I'm doing it. No. I'm
so much empathy. I didn't want to put you in a bad position.
You know what I did? I said I got to take this guy down a little bit. He's a little bit arrogant and cocky. If I look away, he thinks I'm looking at the clock. Clock's up there, Jim. I'm looking at the sound levels right here. No, we're fine. I could talk to you always.
The only reason why I solved the case was the first case that I profiled was because I'm left-handed. Because when I played it out in my mind, I used my left hand to hold the gun, and everything fell into place. I looked around the room. Nobody else in the room was left-handed, and so I said, "The killer is left-handed." Wow. And everybody looked at me like, "Shut up! You're the new kid. You're not supposed to speak."
I want my name on the show to be left-handed.
And wait,
because I'm the outsider.
Okay. And I said, he's close to the victim. She let him in. He didn't yank the door open. He opened it and slowly closed it. Because there was a video that only showed from the bottom of where the window is in the van that she was sitting in to the ground. So you saw somebody, a man obviously, walk up, open the door slowly, close the door, minute and a half, open the door and close the door. She was found an hour and a half later, dead. Gunshot wounds and stuff like that. So I said this. He's left-handed and he's close to her. And all of a sudden I see the district attorney and the chief and the detective, like they blanch. They just go white.
Wow.
And I said, what's wrong? And they said, her husband,
son of a bitch,
is left-handed.
Yeah.
And he's our boss. He's the chief of detectives.
Wow.
I was like, oh, shit.
Wow.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I said, no, well, look at him. They said, we are.
Wow.
So that was it. Right there. They had that case for like 18 months. Nobody had ever.
There was a Dateline the other day about an indigenous victim. This was up in Alaska, and it turned out to be a police officer that did it.
Really?
Yeah.
That happens.
Right. So it was sort of like, and you saw it in the program the moment they said, hey, we got the tire tracks back, or we got the evidence, or what. Right. No, some neighbor was out smoking at 2:00 in the morning and saw a police cruiser go by and saw him talk to her. But that was the last time her cell phone pinged, and they got him. So that's got to be. So
it's tough.
Did they get the guy?
Yeah.
Was it him?
Yeah.
It's always the husband. Let me tell you something, okay? Watch Dateline. Married people die every single day from suspicious things.
Well, look, they're trying to get Scott Peterson out now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, would you say there's a greater chance of being killed once you're married? Do married people die at a higher rate?
If you're trying to separate, times of separation and pregnancy.
Pregnancy is the highest time for a woman to be murdered.
Yes.
They don't murder when they're pregnant, do they?
Oh,
no, I'm saying
no. Do women generally murder while they're pregnant?
No, the most dangerous time in a woman's life is when she's pregnant.
Yes.
But do pregnant women kill? Is there cases where a pregnant woman has killed her husband?
Not in my experience.
Yeah.
Not in my experience.
I think that once you get married, of course, when money comes in, they make divorce so difficult. Make it easy. Have 1 hour divorce. There'll be less killings.
Postpartum things that happen sometimes that increase the chances of a woman acting out violently, but generally that's aimed at the child, not at the husband.
If you're comfortable, I'd like to get into how you got into the FBI.
Okay, sure. Of course I'm comfortable. It's a nice chair.
Okay. I want to talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Because it's a really interesting. This is called a tease. It's
Wow.
And are you willing right now on tape, looking at the camera, I'm looking at mine, to commit to unretiring and taking me up to Idaho and cracking this murder.
I think we can do an investigative series where we go out and we actually solve cold case homicides.
I'd love to. And I'm not even being like flippant. I know 4 people died and it seems like I'm joking, but I do really think, like one time, not to compare murder to yogurt, but Dannon Yogurt, this is the smartest company I've ever worked for.
This is going to be interesting.
Dannon Yogurt hired me and 2 other comedians, including Sebastian, who's huge right now, to write as many jokes as we could think of about yogurt. They wanted to see how our mind saw yogurt. And that's really smart because we were such outsiders. We were coming up with wild stuff. And you're just looking at the ad agency going, they were too myopic. Is that the word? They were tunnel vision? Right. Yeah. Sometimes I pull these big words out. I get all excited. Fires me up. Do you want to talk about me on Teen Wolf and the question? I have a question. Sure. I have a question for an actual FBI profiler about a character on the show, Teen Wolf.
Okay, great. Let's see if the writers wrote right.
There you go. I want to thank Jim Clemente, of course. And you want to stick around for part 2. Let me tell you what's going to happen in part 2. I asked a former FBI profiler to break down one character from the show Teen Wolf. Can you guess which character it is? It's a character you've never seen. I asked him point blank, who killed John Benet Ramsey? And I think he knows. We talk about so much more. You want to see it. You want to hear it. Episode 67, What's Wrong with Orny Adams, it'll be out in a week. Thank you, Ernesto Hurtado, for helping me edit this and produce this particular episode. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody. We'll see you and hear you. You'll hear me. You'll see me. You'll do everything next week. And I hope to see everybody that listens at one of my live stand-up comedy shows. That's it.